to chew on. The Lunchroom on RCI, Monday to Friday, 12:45 to 2 p.m. The Lunchroom, informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI, food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International for Friday, April the 19th, 2024. This is program number 1168. I'm your host, Calix George Jr. Now, in addition to radio on frequency 101.1 FM, you can get us at our website, rcistlucia.com. We are also running live on Facebook. Just search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International. And please be sure to like and share that link with your friends and family. And of course, if you want to call in to tell us what's on your plate today to the program, you can call in to 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. As well as our WhatsApp number. It is 724-0008. You can call in. You can message in on WhatsApp on 724-0008. Now, just a few items today for the history of the day. Well, back in the year 1995, we saw the Oklahoma City bombing occurring, in which Timothy McVeigh set a truck bomb at the Alfred P. Murrah federal building, and that led to the loss of 168 lives, including 19 children, and the injury count was somewhere around 500. And in 2011, on this day, Fidel Castro resigned his position as first secretary of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Cuba after 45 years in power. And we now move on to our dish of the day. The daily dish is ready with the kind compliments of our good friends at Tiles Plus.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. Need all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasway and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down to mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses Grozile, and Slack Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome to our program for this Friday, and we do hope that you're having a pretty good one. Over in India, the country that is now the world's most populous, largest population of any country in the world, in fact, having surpassed that of China, they are planning on heading to the polls. And so out of a population of 1.4 billion people, there are an estimated 970 million people who are eligible to vote. And that makes India by far the world's largest democracy. And certainly we have seen it change tremendously over the past 10 to 15 years. It has been growing tremendously, not only in terms of population, but certainly its economy. In fact, just quite recently, we had the visit of the Indian ambassador to St. Lucia and a number of the islands in the Eastern Caribbean, also in fact based over in Suriname, and he was here in part to sign a visa agreement, but also visa waiver agreement, but also to assist in handing over a building to the care that Center for Adolescent Rehabilitation, and they have been doing quite a lot of work over the years, that institution, in assisting young people in giving them a second chance. And they've gone ahead and actually building a facility down in the cul-de-sac valley for that purpose, and it was in fact funded through the assistance of the government of India in conjunction with the International Labour Organization, ILO. Well, and of course, as we are seeing India project itself more and more around the world, certainly there has been quite a lot of interest in what is unraveling with respect to its elections. The gentleman who leads the country right now and who leads the one of the two major parties, that of the BJP, is Narendra Modi, and he is in fact looking for a third term. And hopefully he is, of course, India uses a fairly similar system to ours in terms of having a parliamentary system. And so, as the Prime Minister, of course, he needs to win a majority of the 543 constituencies across that country. Last time around, he won, I think, about 303 such seats. I think his numbers have dropped somewhat because you do get people moving around, so it's down now to 296. And of course, the other major other party is known as the Congress Party, or properly known as the Indian National Congress, and they have certainly a much smaller footprint in terms of the number of seats in the parliament in Delhi, 51 seats at current. It's a very pluralistic multi-party scenario that exists in the Indian parliament. So the BJP had 37% in the last 7% of the votes in the last general election, and 303 seats, whereas the other major party, Congress, 19%, and they only got 52 seats, about 10% of the total seat count. We've got a very interesting little clip from Al Jazeera giving some context to that upcoming Indian general election. In fact, it starts today, and it's going to be going on up until June. And that is because it has to go through a number of different phases. Because it's such a large country in the population, it has about 7 phases of voting, and the country is divided up in that way. And so the first phase of voting actually begins today, or has begun today, April the 19th. And that is going to be continuing right up until June the 1st. That's the last day of actual polling. And hopefully the results would be announced on June the 4th. But let's take a quick listen to this Al Jazeera clip.
Let's talk about the world's biggest election. It's happening in India. 970 million voters, more than 2,600 political parties, and one likely outcome. 5 more years of Prime Minister Modi.
It is safe to assume that Narendra Modi is headed for a third term.
Modi's approval rating makes him the most popular leader in the world right now.
Well, we have Bollywood stars in India. Modi has probably surpassed them in terms of popularity.
He gets a lot of credit for India's booming economy and its growing status on the world stage. But some people are worried about the direction the country is going in. They say Modi and his party are changing India's democracy into a more authoritarian state. one that prioritizes India's majority Hindu population and threatens minorities, especially Muslims.
So there's no doubt that Modi's government has attacked some of the key features of India's democratic setup.
The fear is that the democracy in our country is slowly slipping.
So here are 5 things to know to help you understand what's going on in India and why this election is such a big deal. The first thing to get your head around is the sheer scale of holding an election in a country of 1.4 billion people. The number of registered voters in India is more than all the voters in these 7 countries, which also have elections this year. It'll take 15 million election workers, more than 1 million polling stations, and it's happening in 7 phases from April to June, with different parts of the country voting at different times.
It's always a grand democratic exercise, and you have every year stories of folks taking up electoral voting machines to tiny places where there's only 3 or 4 people voting, but they make the effort to cross rivers and climb hills to get there.
Now, India is a parliamentary system, like the UK, for example. People will be voting for candidates to represent them in the lower house of parliament. There are 543 seats, and the political party or alliance that gets a majority forms a government and chooses the prime minister. The next thing you need to know is who's up against who. There are thousands of parties running, but here are the key players. There's the ruling BJP, that's Modi's party. It leads a political alliance of several other parties, but has been able to get a majority on its own in the last 2 elections. This time, Modi has set a target for an even bigger win. He wants 370 seats for the BJP alone and 400 with his allies. On the opposition side, you've got the Congress party. It dominated Indian politics for decades, but these days it's much weaker, and it's linked up with a bunch of other parties to take on the BJP as the India Alliance.
The fight is not between 2 political formations. The fight is a fight to defend the idea of India. And that is why we came up with the name.
That's Rahul Gandhi. He's seen as the leader of the Congress party, and he's from India's most famous political dynasty. His father, grandmother, and great-grandfather were all prime ministers. Now, Rahul Gandhi might be the face of Congress, but he's not the official leader of the India Alliance. It's not yet clear who that is.
The India Alliance has got entangled in leadership issues, squabbles over programs, squabbles over agenda, and it hasn't really gained traction.
Contrast that with the BJP and Modi, who's both really popular and powerful. Let's run through some reasons that explain his appeal. Modi's from a pretty modest background, not a political dynasty. He projects himself as a decisive leader who gets things done, a break from the coalition governments that came before him when there was a lot of infighting and corruption scandals.
In a certain way, he conveys an image of integrity, probity, and transparency.
India's economy is also doing really well right now. It's the fastest growing major economy in the world.
At a time when the global economy is still struggling, India clearly has a better record under Modi in the last few years.
Quick disclaimer, not everyone in India is necessarily feeling the benefits. Young people especially are struggling to find jobs. Rahul Gandhi's made that a big part of his campaign, and thousands of farmers have been protesting because they can't make a decent living.
Modi Sarkar Murdabad!
But Modi also talks about how his policies have lifted millions out of poverty.
25 करोड़ लोग गरीबी से बाहर आए हैं.
Under one government program, 800 million people receive a free ration of grain every month, and there's no doubt who it's coming from. Many people also approve of the way Modi has raised India's profile internationally through things like hosting the G20 summit and international tours where he's often received like a rock star.
Well, the last time I saw someone on the stage here was Bruce Springsteen, and he didn't get the welcome that Prime Minister Modi has got. Modi's also positioning India as a space power.
India has become the first country in the world to successfully land a craft near the moon's south pole.
India is on the moon.
It becomes another element in the broader idea that under Modi, India is rising, India is growing.
He's popular because he's macho, he talks business. That muscular image is very important, and it seems to go down well with a lot of Indians.
Now, there's another key part of Modi and the BJP's appeal, and it really deserves its own section, and that's Hindutva, a political ideology that promotes Hinduism as the dominant political and cultural force in India. Hindus make up 80% of India's population. The next biggest group is Muslims, and there are also significant numbers of Christians and Sikhs. They're all considered minority communities, but we're talking about millions of people. Now, when India became independent in 1947, it was established as a secular democracy, so the state is not meant to favor any one religion. But many accuse Modi and the BJP of trying to change that by pushing policies that favor the Hindu majority.
Hindutva is broadly the ideology of the BJP, and it's based on the sense that India ought to be a land run by and for the Hindus, while minorities may still be a part of this fabric. It is one that imagines a Hindu state in the way that Pakistan is, for example, a state for Muslims.
It is very important to make a distinction between Hinduism and Hindutva. You have practicing Hindus who go to temples, practice rituals, but they don't necessarily subscribe to the BJP's ideology, which is underpinned on political Hindutva.
People point to many examples of the government platforming Hinduism in a very public way, like the opening of the Ayodhya temple. Hindus believe the site was the birthplace of one of their most prominent gods, Ram. But a mosque stood there for hundreds of years, until 1992, when Hindu mobs tore it down.
That led to nationwide communal riots that killed at least 2,000 people, mostly Muslims.
For years afterwards, it was a subject of a bitter land dispute over who the land actually belongs to, but now the temple is in place.
And in January, Modi led the opening ceremony, delivering on what had been a core pledge of the BJP for years.
The BJP sees it as a milestone in its history.
Being present at very clearly religious events and platforming those as being definitive about India is quite new and a big part of Modi's appeal.
But it's a big part of the criticism too. And that brings us to our last point, why some people are fearful about the direction that India is going in under Modi's leadership. Let's start with the media. The government and its supporters are accused of controlling the messaging in traditional media and online, squeezing out critical voices. Reporters Without Borders says violence against journalists, the politically partisan media, and the concentration of media ownership all demonstrate that press freedom is in crisis.
The mainstream media has been completely co-opted by the government. In fact, rarely do you see a report which calls the government to account.
If you open any TV channel or a newspaper, there's only Mr. Narendra Modi.
But it's not just the media. There are also accusations that the government is using or misusing its power to target activists and opposition politicians.
You have the sense that the investigative agencies run by the central government have been used as a political tool against those who are critical.
Another major criticism of Modi and the BJP is that their policies have created an atmosphere that's enabled discrimination and violence against minorities, especially Muslims.
That's been one of the glaring features of the last 10 years, and it's just becoming worse by the day.
Muslims have been targeted by Hindu mobs under all sorts of pretexts, and videos of attacks are often shared online. Mosques have been set on fire, and Muslim businesses have been bulldozed. Against that backdrop of rising violence, a controversial new law has also been making headlines. The law fast-tracks citizenship for immigrants of certain religions, but not Muslims. There have been protests about it, and critics say it goes against India's secular constitution.
This is the first time that into the principle of citizenship, you are finding a law being brought in that actually discriminates by excluding people of one particular faith.
Now, the government rejects this. It says the law is about protecting persecuted religious minorities from neighboring countries and that Muslims don't fall into that category. Modi's also brushed off accusations that there's any wider pattern of discrimination in India.
in India's democratic values, there is absolutely no discrimination, neither on basis of caste, creed, or age, or any kind of geographic location.
Modi's message is one that resonates with a lot of people in India. He's going into this election with a really strong position, with the power of the state behind him, and few people expect the weak and divided opposition alliance to overcome that. So people aren't really talking about whether Modi will win, but by how much. We do explainers about lots of different news topics. Check out our recent episode about what's going on in the war in Ukraine.
And that piece coming out of Al Jazeera and looking at the Indian general election, which in fact has kicked off today. And of course, as mentioned there, the traditional party has been, or ruling party has been the Congress party, which in fact was the party of Jawaharlal Nehru, and was around from since the very early days of India, from 1947, and saw a very long line of Congress party leaders, including Nanda and the likes of Indira Gandhi, which of course is where the current Congress party leader hails from. Rajiv Gandhi as well also led it. And I think it was only until 1996 that we actually saw a BJP government being formed under A.B. Vajpayee. And so since then, it's been a bit of a more mixed situation with respect to the politics of India. We then saw a Congress party under Manmohan Singh, which ruled for about 10 years, from about 2004 up until 2014, and then the ascendancy of Mr. Modi. And he is currently the fourth longest serving, continuously serving Prime Minister of India. He's been around for nearly 10 years already, and quite likely, as has been indicated, will be winning another election and will get a third government to be formed over in India. India, as has been mentioned, is certainly an ascending power in terms of its economy. Yes, it's still a developing country, but it has now been ranked, I think, as the fifth largest economy in the world by market exchange rates, about nominally about 3.5 trillion dollars, according to the IMF, and it in fact has been growing at a rate of nearly 6% over the past 2 decades, making it one of the fastest growing economies in the world. But even so, it has been coming from a pretty low level, so it still does not rank very high in terms of GDP per capita. And so certainly still has much growth to be realized. But it is growing, and in some very important sectors. The Indian telecommunications industry is believed to be the second largest in the world, with over 1.2 billion subscribers. That has certainly helped it tremendously in terms of the business process outsourcing industry. And they, in fact, are the world's leader in that respect, and also being buoyed by the fact that it has a fairly large English-speaking population as well. And it's also growing in other tech areas, in production. Indian automotive industry is the second fastest growing in the world, with rising demand for vehicles, of course, in that market. The IT sector, centered around cities like Hyderabad and Bangalore, are employing millions of Indians. In fact, quite a lot of them coming back from the United States and other parts of the world to bring their skills to bear on that growth. So certainly it has placed itself in a very, very good scenario in terms of future economic growth. Pharmaceuticals is another major area. And of course, you heard quite a lot of that during the entire period of the pandemic, where their production of nearly 60% of the world's vaccines being based in India, with thousands and thousands of different companies and manufacturing units supporting that sector. So it is certainly an ascending power, and one can say it is reclaiming its place in the globe. Back in the 1500s, India and China were in fact the largest economies in the world, and by all indications, they are likely to continue to find that, to get that place into the future. So certainly very important country in the future, and even right now in terms of the world trade and economic development. So that's our dish of the day. When we come back, we'll take in our weather report and then head to the phone lines.
This has been The Daily Dish.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. With all kind of tiles, come down to Tiles Plus. We also black, that's why and vanity. Box, doors, you'll see. Come down, don't mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses, Jugosile, and Flag Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
Island style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style, whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style, oh yeah. We make your dream come alive. In Island style,
we have tiles and insets, pieces and ground. Everything you need to sort the house out. For the best price and the latest style, take a little drive down to Island Style Car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality, price, service, choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Bellarosa, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Castries, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. Or call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And that's all, of course, still a 1.1. It's now time for your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Tile and Bath. The forecast valid for St. Lucia for the next 24 hours. Winds will be blowing from the east, near to east, southeast, near 15 miles per hour or 24 kilometers per hour. The weather partly cloudy and hazy, becoming cloudy with some light to moderate showers by late afternoon into tonight. And there is an advisory in here which reads persons with respiratory ailments and dust allergies are advised to take the necessary precautions. Also, small craft operators are advised to exercise caution due to reduced visibility. The forecast for the Les Antilles, partly cloudy to cloudy and hazy with widely scattered showers over the Leeward and Northern Windward Islands. Elsewhere, to partly cloudy and hazy with a few showers. And the weather summary: a surface to low-level trough and scattered showers over the northern half of the Les Antilles during the forecast period. A plume of Saharan dust haze will cause a reduction in visibility and air quality across the Eastern Caribbean region over the next few days. And this was your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Tile and Bath.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Island style. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, we'll have to make the right choice. Island style. Whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive. In island style.
We have tiles and insets, mixes and grout. Everything you need to sort the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style Car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality, price, service, choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Belarus, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
And welcome back to our lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. And of course, the number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. As well as our WhatsApp number, it is 724-0008. Again, 724-0008. Now, there's been quite a lot of discourse on the matter of the Citizenship by Investment program here in St. Lucia, and we've been hearing quite a bit from the opposition, United Workers' Party, on the matter regarding the potential risks that may lie with regards to the matter of imposition of visa requirements. Now, of course, we've seen how these matters have changed over time, and of course, the purview of immigration and passport control and visa controls are a matter of a country's protection of its borders, and quite often countries will introduce requirements over the years. Now, of course, we've seen, despite our long-standing association with as Commonwealth members and much association with in terms of the investment and aid provided by Canada over the years, a decision was taken some years back to impose visa requirements for nationals coming from the many Eastern Caribbean countries to travel to Canada. And one of the major reasons actually brought forward was what was seen as an abuse of the asylum system by nationals coming out of these islands trying to gain access and to migrate to Canada. It was certainly still controversial at the time, and of course, quite often these positions that are held by various governments will change as well, depending on the government in power. And you may have a government that is has a more closed, insular approach towards dealing with immigration than another. And so these things sometimes change. But once they change, it tends to be pretty hard to get them to be addressed or to change again. And so that is where we found ourselves in the case of Canada. And it was only until last year, in fact, that we actually saw a change in the arrangements, easing up the access for St. Lucians to be able to travel to Canada. A number of these countries have also introduced what are known as electronic travel authorizations, or ETAs, in which individuals still have to apply beforehand before actually traveling. And that has been something that has been coming for a while, but of course as well thanks to COVID, we've seen that is a lot more common. And even the United Kingdom, I think, is looking in that direction. But of course, the matter of CIP has also come with that fear across many countries. And remember, the basis of a passport is looking at the strength of that passport. And by strength of passport, it is really an issue as to how many countries effectively one can actually enter without actually requiring to go through the process of a visa or applying for a visa. And of course, the countries that have very, very strong passports have largely been many European, North American countries, but also some Asian countries as well. In fact, right now, based on the Henley 2024 Passport Index, which was published not too long ago on the 15th of April, the countries that have the highest ranking in terms of access, visa-free destinations are France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Singapore, and Spain. And those countries, in fact, allow you to get 194 countries around the world without visa requirements. You will see number 2 for 193 countries where you actually don't require visas to get in. Those passports, those countries are Austria, Finland, Ireland, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, South Korea, and Sweden. So they're ranked second in terms of having strong passports and allowing one to be able to access. And so most of that list, as you go down the ranking from third, fourth, fifth. In fact, the United States finds itself down at, along with Canada, at number 7 in the ranking, with 188 countries within which one can enter without actually making a visa requirement. The strongest in the Caribbean, which is ranking at number 22, is in fact Barbados. And Barbadians enjoy visa-free access to 165 countries. The Bahamas is at number 24, and they enjoy visa-free access to 158 countries. And then at number 25, St. Kitts and Nevis, as well as St. Vincent and the Grenadines, they have visa-free access to 157 countries. The next in that list, Antigua, is at it's at 27th in that ranking, with visa-free access to 154 countries. Trinidad to 151 countries, ranks at number 29, and St. Lucia and Grenada ranked at number 32 with visa-free access to 148 countries. So in fact, just for the point of reference in terms of other countries around, for instance, Dominica has visa-free access to 144 countries around the world. Compare that to Taiwan, which has visa-free access to 143 countries. So there are certainly a number of countries that don't have a lot of visa-free access. And if you really go way down the list, you'll find that many of the African countries will find themselves at the lower end of that, but as well a number of countries that have had in Asia that have had significant issues with security, In fact, the bottom of the list at 104 in the ranking is actually Afghanistan. So countries like Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, Pakistan, Palestine, Somalia, Yemen, Libya, North Korea, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nigeria. Those countries have visa-free access. In fact, Afghanistan, it's only 28. So pretty much, for most of the world, if you're Afghani, you would have to get a visa to be able to travel. And of course, once you're talking about that, the complexity of travel becomes greater and it's more challenging for individuals. So many of these countries, as I mentioned, Iran, for instance, you can only get into 45 countries without requiring a visa if you were Iranian. The same for a Nigerian. And so what we will then therefore find is that many of the individuals who are in fact looking for passports will be coming from many of these countries. And that has been where there's been a bit of a challenge. Of course, China as well. So relatively speaking, the average Chinese could get into 85 countries without requiring a visa. And so for many of them, getting this another passport and a stronger passport helps significantly in terms of travel and moving around. So, of course, the Citizenship by Investment program has been quite popular, and there are a number of countries, of course, who provide these programs, and in particular, of course, here in the Caribbean, it has been very important in terms of the economic impact that these passport programs have actually realized. So St. Lucia has recently been ranked, in fact, by this very same Henley and partners through its Global Citizenship Program as having one of the best of these programs in the Caribbean, in the world, sorry. And it's in fact ranked number 3 out of 100 countries with these passport programs. The top of the list, Malta, European Union country, and so one can well understand why it's a passport from Malta would certainly be sought after. Again, very interesting enough, because what you'll see is that many of these countries that are providing these passport programs find themselves as being very small countries, relatively small populations, and certainly in the case of Malta, one of the smallest countries within Europe, within the European Union, island states, not more than about 400,000 people or so. And so definitely their system, their passport, which gets you access to about 190 countries without visa requirements, would certainly be far up in that ranking. And of course, importantly, to make the point, it is a European Union member state. The other country, which ranks second, is also a European Union state, this time within the mainland of the continent, Austria, and they are number 2 on that list. And St. Lucia, Antigua and Barbuda, as well as Grenada, have the joint third place ranking within this Henley and Partners 2024 Global Citizenship Program Index. And what are some of these things that they're looking at? They look at the quality of life of the country, visa-free travel, which we just, of course, spoke about extensively, investment prerequisites, compliance measures, which, of course, we've heard quite a lot about with respect to the matter of due diligence, and as well residency requirements. And of course, to speak to that, many countries actually require you to remain in the country for a length of time. Now, we see that with a number of other programs of immigration programs that exist, where sometimes people want to be able to get a green card, for instance. The U.S. has a green card system, and that requires you to spend a particular amount of time within the country. The same for Canada and many of these countries. They will expect you to be resident for a particular amount of time. As the case of our CBIs or CIPs in the region, many of them do not actually have requirements to be resident on island. Some of them traditionally, of course, required you to at least visit the country once, or at the point of collection that you had to be on island. But some of these requirements, I think in the main, have in fact been removed. There was also, of course, the basis of this was that you would have to have some form of an investment, and that would mean that you would be owning some property or having shares in some development within the country. But we've seen some significant changes in that regard as well. Because you would recall, I think the former administration had introduced what was effectively a bond system for passports, so that in fact, truth be told, the government, you would get your money back at the end of the 5-year period. I'm not sure how that is still panning out, and in fact, if that is still being put forward as one of the potential conduits for receiving citizenship, but that was in fact introduced here in the case of St. Lucia. There's also matters of relocation flexibility, and of course, how easy is it for you to say if you have in fact gained citizenship in the country, how easy would it be for you to actually set up residence and establish your bank accounts and do those types of buy a property. All of these things assimilate into the country, because many of these programs are actually geared towards having people physically come on island. Now, therein, of course, lies some of the debate and the differences of opinions regarding programs such as citizenship by investment. In the main, like in the case of Dominica, where there have been thousands and thousands and thousands of passports being issued, by and large, the vast majority of these people perhaps will never even set foot in Dominica, even though they in fact are citizens and will in fact have Dominican passports. And so this has been a big debate, and the question is, which has been posed by some people, well, what if is there this possibility that what would it mean, in terms of the society and how it would operate if these people actually decided to actually come to Dominica or come to the Caribbean and relocate? Part of the reason why individuals do actually desire having that possibility of a second citizenship is the issue of instability in their own country. And many people see it as an insurance of a sort of a get-out plan, right? Or a get-out-of-country plan. If, in fact, for whatever different reason, there's a significant conflict, maybe civil war, whatever the case may be, that will cause a significant disruption in that country, then what do I do? How do I get my family out? Right? How do I get them to somewhere safe where we can continue to live? And so in very similar ways, for instance, where we saw natural disasters in the Caribbean, a hurricane hits, and many people in one country had the opportunity, thanks, of course, because we're in the same CARICOM space or in the same Eastern Caribbean single market and economy, they can move easily from one country and relocate to another. Many people in some of these countries that we spoke about at the bottom of that list earlier on don't have that opportunity. They don't have that ability to say that they can just get up and leave China, or they can just get up and leave Afghanistan or Pakistan. It is far more difficult in those situations, and so having that ability to do so by virtue of holding a passport and guaranteeing that they can in fact live in another country is quite often very attractive to many people. So they may not end up actually living in the country where they have the passport. They may use it to be able to get access to another place and stay there for time to time. That might be the strategy that some of them use. But it is all part of this trend. And it's a reality of the world that we are seeing. You would recall, for instance, what has been going on with respect to Hong Kong. And Hong Kong has been historically, of course, it was a British territory in Asia, in China, or along the Chinese coast, very important for trade, but later on, certainly financial services, and it became immensely wealthy as a result of its presence in Asia, and its differentiated location as a result of that, as a sort of an entrepot, and that allowed for it to become very popular. Now, what happened, of course, from 1997, where it was transferred back into becoming part of China, although it kept its systems in place for some time, we've seen of late, of course, that changing arrangement of how things are currently in Hong Kong. And there was no secret that many persons who were living in Hong Kong were seeking to relocate, and they were very much welcome to relocate to the United Kingdom, because these individuals were coming with immense wealth. In the main, they were coming with skills, a lot of them in the financial services sector, and so quite a large number of them were in fact being encouraged to potentially relocate to the city of London and to make their presence there. Now, that's not the case for the average Chinese individual in the People's Republic of China. That treatment would be very, very different, quite likely. So this is why programs like citizenship by investment are certainly still very, very popular in this regard. Now, of course, earlier this week, the Prime Minister, Philip J. Pierre, had to defend the integrity of St. Lucia's Citizenship by Investment program. And that, of course, came against the backdrop of criticisms being meted out by the opposition United Workers' Party. And they were claiming that there was a risk of losing visa-free access to the United Kingdom as well as Europe. You'd recall recently Dominica was listed as one of the countries, in fact, which lost visa-free access to the United Kingdom. The suggestion there having to do with issues of due diligence and issues with respect to who were receiving passports under that program. Now, moving forward, of course, the issue of Europe is a major one. because the European Union members operate using what is known as the Schengen Agreement, and there are a number of countries that have provided visa-free access to the European Union, and that has certainly been very, very important in terms of the overall strength of the passports, because it's one thing to talk about visa-free access to many countries, but you could probably, if you actually had to weight those countries, you would find that you would quite likely have to weight these European countries higher, because of the desire for many people to actually want to go to them. So that is part of this, where that big issue lies with respect to that. Now, of course, we didn't always have visa-free access to the European Union. It was over a long period of time, as well as signing on to things like the Economic Partnership Agreement, and sort of setting that stage to allow for greater access for many Caribbean countries, but though not all. So there are a number of countries which are part of this Schengen arrangement, from Belgium, France, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Austria. Even the Eastern European countries have come on board as well. Czechia and Croatia and Estonia and so on. So quite a very large block, a very important block in terms of passport strength and visa-free access exists with respect to the European Union. So, of course, how the program is managed is very, very important. And the challenge, of course, that is being seen right now, especially in the case of St. Lucia, is that many of these countries have been operating these programs for quite some time. And St. Lucia was fairly late in the game to join back in 2015. And so only now we're beginning to, perhaps you could say, enjoy the similar benefits of these other countries, and now we're seeing some of the changes and the shifts with respect to this current management of the program across the Caribbean. So this is what that big debate is about, and the Prime Minister, who actually recently returned from that trip, has said that he was never summoned, or nobody actually invited him. He actually said the following: "I asked to see the members of the European Commission and the European Parliament. The reason why I did that, I wanted to hear firsthand for myself what was the situation regarding the Schengen visa." And that is a visa which covers, as I mentioned, the Schengen area covers an area of about 20 European countries. So we'll speak more about that perhaps in the coming week, but we're out of time here at the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. We do hope that everybody has a very blessed and safe weekend. Do enjoy it, but not too much, and have a good one. I'm your host, Calix George Jr., saying goodbye.